Welcome along, everybody. We are back for bronze. We are ready to get going here in Italy then for round 12 of season 9. And bear with me 1 second because I haven't got... well, what have I got? I haven't got the stream up, so bear with me 1 second whilst I get the comments and everything going. And people are messaging me, please leave me alone. I want to commentate on bronze. Bear with me 1 second. I can't get myself sorted. Welcome along then to the stream. Welcome along to the 12th round of the season. Only 4 rounds remaining after this one tonight then, so looking forward to seeing how it's going to go. And Rocket Lisa, good luck guys. And Ginger Rage has said something as well then, my goodness me. Ginger Rage for the win tonight then, so maybe he's got some hacks that he has unlocked then for the Italian Grand Prix as finally we get ourselves loaded in and underway, and we can crack on then with round 12 then. Let's go, says Jamie as well. Then of course Jamie did a good job on his debut last week, sorry, in the Netherlands for bronze, and there we go. Right then, we can get ourselves sorted and crack on then, hopefully. We'll run through the championship order as we go through into the qualifying to start off with. And in the lead of the championship, as it has been for the last 3 rounds, although it's quite close now, then it's Luke then in the kick tower, then 180 points then for Luke, that is. Dan now only 2 points behind then in the Alpine, and looking very treacherous indeed for potentially a title win there. Luke has left the session again then. Goodness me, Luke is having horrible problems there, it looks like. So unfortunately for Luke then, as the championship lead, then he might lose that championship lead then if Dan can score 3 points then or more, then if Luke can't get himself back in. Dynamo Dan then in P3 in the driver's standings, that is 134 points then for the Red Bull driver then in P3, but Jinner then and Serious Mushroom are closing in then. And we'll see, Styles, to be fair, in the Haas then in P6 as well. So it's getting close at the top then for the top 3 positions, that is, as we've got a few outlaps underway as well then. Good stuff indeed. In the Constructors then, we'll go through then very quickly the top of the order then. We've got Kicksauer leading the way, 274 points then for Kicksauer, then Smithy and Luke then leading the way on a fantastic charge. And Haas then of Styles and Mr. Elite then in 199 points in P2 for the Haas team. Alpine then 187 points then for Dan, and for Vintage in the top 3 then for Alpine. Aston Martin in P4, then McLaren in P5, Williams in P6, Red Bull in P7, Racing Bull in P8, then Ferrari and Mercedes then making up the bottom of the order then for the time being, as we got ourselves sorted now and we can crack on with some action then in bronze then, and here we go. Raining in the race then, says Ginger Age, and goodness me, I think he doesn't know. He doesn't understand what weather is. Dry but overcast, says Dynamo Dan then, and Evening Alex, says Mushroom as well, and fantastic stuff indeed. So nobody knows what the weather is doing then here in Monza tonight. We had a couple of wet sessions, I should say, haven't we? So we had a bit of rain, we had quite a lot of rain last night in Silver then, which was, it's absolutely fantastic racing, to be fair. Absolutely brilliant stuff indeed to watch the Silver guys then tackle the challenge then of a wet Monza circuit then, but they did brilliantly, I should say. So go back and watch that then, of course, after you watch bronze, that is. Yeah, fantastic stuff from Silver then. Of course, Gold then had some fantastic pace as well, then blistering pace as well around here as per usual then. And there we go, Luke has rejoined. I think he has got himself in the session, but unfortunately not having a good time then getting himself set for qualifying. Always did the opposite, but could be wrong, says Dynamo Dan as well then. So as Jake the Slayer has said then, what's up lads, then I'm slightly prepared for the rain but will affect my quality. But there we go then. So some drivers then, I'm not quite sure if they, not quite sure what the weather's doing anyway, to be fair, it sounds like, especially from Ginger Age's point of view, but then again, Ginger Age doesn't know if it's raining or sunny in the normal world, that is, but never mind. Well, to be fair, Ginger Age doesn't want to go outside then in any weather conditions, does he? So that's fair. And I agree, to be honest, but there we go then. Heading into Ascari for Ginner then, medium compound tyres for the McLaren then, and he goes through very nicely indeed. I think Luke has got himself in the car now, so hopefully the championship leader can try and contend here in Monza as we head into the Parabolica then for the McLaren. Then let's see if McLaren can get themselves another race win, and another fantastic race win here in Monza back in 2021, I think that 2021 I think it was, wasn't it, or 2022. Gina then pole position as it stands then, a 19.7 medium compound tyre, same for Liam in P2, 20.6 for Liam in the Williams. Good stuff indeed. A few other drivers then out on the soft compound tyre though, and might be able to improve on those times. Then here comes Real Ashton. Then we've just had Umabra jump up into P3, then Real Ashton, then rounding the Parabolica then for the Red Bull team. Then let's see what Real Ashton can do. Sorry, it's P4 then for the Red Bull, then 21.2, very close indeed to Umabra's time as well then. So good stuff for the Mercedes and the Red Bull as it stands. Then we've got Styles then heading into Parabolica as well. Then his teammate of Mr. Elite is just starting a lap then, so let's stay on board with Styles then and see what we can do then, rounding the final corner then up to the line then for the Haas. Here he comes then. What's it going to be? It's a 20.1. Puts himself on the front row of the grid then with a 20.1 as well then. Good stuff from Styles, who's had a pretty good turn of form then in the last few races as well, if he doesn't mind me saying then, but maybe I've cursed him now. Very sorry about that. So there we are then. It's just classic commentator's curse, isn't it? Jake Slayer starting off a lap then. Where is Jamie then on his debut, or his second debut I should say, goodness me. He of course raced in Mercedes last night, last week I should say, goodness me, in the Netherlands that was. And did a good job then as well then. I think the tyres started to fall off then for Jamie then in the second stint then. Let's hope we can hold it all together this time and get a fantastic result then in the Williams this time tonight. And good evening, says Legend as well then. Good evening to yourself sir. Purple in sector 2. That's looking pretty good then for the Williams driver, heading into Ascari then, and out of Ascari we go then, powering along down towards the Parabolica now. And let's see what Jamie can do then for his first time on the board then. 13 minutes left of qualifying here then in Monza. And and looking good so far, looking pretty frantic and fast so far, let's just say that then. Heading up to the line for Jamie then, let's see what it's going to be then. It's a 20.2, puts himself into P3 on the front row, with it on the second row, sorry, with his teammate, which is very nice indeed. Well coordinated then from Williams. Although Mr. Elite then in P4 now has displaced Liam down to P5, and Mr. Elite then takes row 2 in the Haas then. So unfortunately, well, it's still quite coordinated with a Haas Williams, but I would like the order to be. My OCD is saying that I'd like the order to be a bit more tidy than that then. But there we are then. So currently then we've got Ginner on pole position with a 19.7, 20.1 for style on the front row. Then we've had Ducanco start. They will finish a lap then, but I think he's going again then in the Ferrari then at their home Grand Prix. And let's see if Ducanco can put himself in the top of the order then as we go into the first chicane. Then very nicely done indeed. Vintage, I think, starting off a lap as well then in the Alpine. We have got a kick Sauber out on track then. It is the championship leader of Luke then, so he's got himself in the car then in the session then, unless his missus is driving for him then here in qualifying. Maybe she'll do a better job then, as no, Luke's decided to come back into the pit lane, so unfortunately they're not going too well then on that occasion for whatever reason. Yellow flags then in sector 2, but I think that's just a car getting out of the way. Then here comes Dynamo Dan heading into the Parabolica. We've got a Mercedes then of Goddard's, who is who is the newest member then of the grid then in bronze, that is, reserving in the Mercedes tonight then in place of who is he in place of? Goodness knows who. I've forgotten completely. I'm very sorry. As we've had Dynamo Dan jump up the order then into P3, then Goddard's on his debut, sorry I should say, then in ALR in the Mercedes, that is, tonight. Then he's reserving then for this occasion. Then we got Evening Alex then, and hello all racers, and good luck to Bronze then without any rain then. Well, apparently we might have some rain for the race, so thank you very much to Kamara Racer then, an absolute legend then for the donation as well. Then of course he is going to help the it's going to go towards helping the division, helping the league itself then in terms of getting the trophies, getting all the actual graphics and everything sorted then for this season and for the new season, which is coming up potentially on F125. Then we'll have to wait and see, but who knows. Jake the Slayer then P8 then in between the two Ferraris, then a 20.7 then for Jake the Slayer. Then potentially I think he might be going again then on a second attempt here, so but could be a few more tenths in that time then for Jake the Slayer, which is looking pretty good indeed. San then, who is now a stalwart in the Ferrari then, of course, after a few full-time appearances then in this season now. He's done I think 2 races in the Ferrari full-time, that is, and a few more reserve appearances for earlier on in the season. There's a McLaren who was having a bit of a slow time through the Lesmos there as we head into the second Lesmo then for San then, who is slowed down, then he's not using any battery. Then potentially he could be giving this man here, Ducanco, a nice little tow then down this back straight. Then we'll have to wait and see then if that's going to be some teamwork then for Ferrari. Then we'll find out then. Is there going to be some more team games then? Of course Ferrari then here at their home Grand Prix want to do well then in qualifying, but also in the race itself. Then here comes Ducanco through the Scari. Then can he get a tow then from his teammate? No, he can't, unfortunately then, so maybe not too much teamwork going on at Ferrari then, unfortunately. San has now booted it, so potentially I think Sam was trying to be a bit selfish there and steal the tow from his teammate, but he's a bit too far back now, and I'm not sure that worked, to be honest. Ducanco back in the pit lane. Jake the Slayer then rounding Parabolica. Then can he improve then on the 20.7? Then yes, he can. He's improved to a 20.6. So he has found just under half a tenth then, but he has improved his time, I should say. Then, but he stays P8 for the time being. Then San then has started off another lap. Then I think has he? He's got close company then. It's Ginger Rage right behind the Ferrari then heading through Curva Grande. Then Ginner's improved to the 19.5. Then he's improved by 0.2 of a second. Then has the McLaren then. And there's more McLaren antics going on then. Goodness me then. Astrodron almost in the back of his teammate then, which would have been very costly indeed for both of them. Liam has improved to P6 then. A fantastic time indeed then from the Williams driver as well then. San then and Ginger Rage very close together then heading into the first and second Lesmos as well. Then Ginger Rage maybe getting a nice little tow there, but he might have been unsettled slightly then through sector 2 especially then, and now through Ascari as well. Then you don't want to be getting some dirty air through here, and heading into sector 3 now for San. Then he's improved by 0.2 of a second. Then that would put him in the range with Jake the Slayer and his teammate then of Ducanco, and with Liam as well potentially, as we head down towards Parabolica now. Let's see, it's getting a bit more cloudy overhead then. Potentially that rain is coming in then, that Ginger Rage did mention as well then, but we'll have to wait and see. But here comes San then, rounding Parabolica now then to finish off his second attempt then. What's it going to be then from San then? It's going to be a 20.4, puts himself P8 then Ginger Age P12 with a 20.7. Very good stuff indeed. And you can tell it's Ginger Age as well then because he's got a very bright pink helmet there as well. Very fantastic stuff indeed. Then we've got more action then out on track then. Smithy coming out then on track then as well. Then Luke then has done an out then but gone back into the pit lane. So I'm not quite sure what's gone on there. Here comes Astra John then, and Jenna then was giving him a tow down towards the first turn. Then Astra John then goes P15, and unfortunately I don't think that tow helped too much then. 20.6 then, 21.6 I should say then for the second McLaren then on the grid as it stands, that is, in terms of the order. Dan has snuck up to P2. I've missed that completely. So has Mushroom then on the medium compound tyres at 20.0 on the mediums then for Serious Mushroom, and that is seriously good then from Mushroom and looking pretty strong indeed as well. Then Dan only, what is that then, a 10th and a half or so away then from pole position then from Jinner. That is, of course, Dan is looking to try and fight then for the championship lead here tonight then as well, then going into round 13, which is going to be a mystery Grand Prix next week as well. He could be the championship leader then, could Dan. We'll have to wait and see. Rocket Wolf has said, yes, it's me in Luke's car then. I don't want to make him look bad. So, okay. Right then, okay. Well, hopefully Luke can, Luke needs to get himself sorted then if he wants to try and win the championship. So he needs to get himself in the car as quickly as possible. Rain Kamara Racer says Styles then, the whole race as well then. Evening lads from Vinci as well then. Thank you very much to Vinci as well. Yeah, there we go then. So maybe we've got some rain. That's definitely got a bit cloudier overhead than here in qualifying, even with 6.5 minutes left of the session. Then we might see some rain towards the end here, which would be very problematic for those who are trying to set some fast times then in the end of the session. Jamie then has improved to P6, then he's back underway then on another lap then for the Williams driver. Then let's see what he can do then into the first chicane, looking very neat and tidy then through there. We'll come back to him then. Ginger Age is back out on circuit as well. They're heading into the Curva Grande. Then we'll come back to him too, because I think we've got more action further ahead. Then we've got the yellow flags ahead. Then that's an Alpine trying to get out of the way then of Smithy, heading into the first Lesmo, and he has done very nicely indeed. Well done indeed then for Smithy, then heading through the second Lesmo now then, and on to the back straight down towards Ascari as well. Jinner for gold, says Jake the Slayer then. So yeah, we'll see what you can do then in the next couple of races. We'll see. But so far so good. Then here comes the kicks out. Goodness me, all over the curbs then for Smith the Almighty. Then as we head down towards Parabolica now as well. Then Luke has assured me he'll be home and told me to keep myself alive. Then I can try my best, and he's about 2 to 3 seconds quicker than I am, says Rocket Wolf. Then well, hopefully whilst you can get yourself a time on the board at least then for Luke then, but hopefully he can get himself in for the race in only 5 minutes time or so though, so he needs to hurry. Smithy then up into P4 at 20.0 on the dot then from Smithy. Then absolutely perfect timing indeed then. Well done to Smithy then. I think he wins my pole position vote already then, so well done indeed from Smithy. Then Jamie has jumped up P5, then he improves then to P5 then from P6 I believe it was, and is only 33 thousandths away then from that P5 position of Smithy as well. And there's all sorts of action going on into the where is this? It's going on in the first turn. I think it's some cars coming out the pit lane then, and that could be problematic then, unsighting some then who are on their flying laps. But I think Jamie has just finished at that then. Winnie has left the session, so that's going to be problematic then for Winnie as well then, with 4.5 minutes left to go. But Winnie then is currently, where is he? He is currently, where is he? He's Winnie he's P3 then, blimey. I completely missed that as well then. So Winnie then is looking pretty good indeed then, up in P3 then. I don't know, says Styles as well then. So there we are. Jinner's back out on circuit as well, then heading through into Sector 3. Then he is 0.2 of a second up on his previous time then as well. Heading into Ascari then. Can he keep it all neat and tidy then through here? Then can he improve even more then to cement that pole position, I should say, then before we even get to the final runs here in qualifying. 4 minutes left of qualifying as well. There's still time for Jinner to get himself time on the board and come back in and go back out again then if he wants to, and try and improve even further. Heading into Parabolica now then. Let's see what the McLaren can do then. Can he improve then? And let's see how much of an improvement it's going to be as well. Up to the line, it's a what is that, almost a 2/10 improvement. That's a 19.401 then, and I think that is going to be very hard to beat indeed then for the likes of Dan for Winnie as well then, if he can get himself back in the car, that is as well. But it is looking pretty impressive stuff indeed for Jinner then to hold on to that pole position. Then Dynamo Dan then unfortunately not improving in the second sector. Then he is 3/10 down on his previous time. Then can he find some time in the final sector? Then Liam then heading through Ascari as well. Then in the Williams. Then let's see what Liam can do. Goodness me, as we head down towards Parabolica now as well. And so far so good. Then let's see what the Williams driver can do. Then can he try and match his teammate then, who's currently up in P5 then on his second appearance I should say then in ALR. And of course after a fantastic performance then as well then in Zandvoort last week for Jamie. Then here comes Liam then up into P10, so into the top 10 there, 20.4 then for the Williams driver. Then good stuff, need a good improvement indeed as well. Then let's see who's next across the line. Then is Jake the Slayer. No, it's not then Jake the Slayer, because he's going to be starting the lap off then for Jake the Slayer. We've got Mushroom heading through the second chicane. Then Hungry Star starting off a lap as well. Then Mr. Elite heading down towards Ascari, then using a lot of battery there as well. Then not much left in the tank then in terms of the battery that is for the Haas then of Mr. Elite heading through Ascari now. I didn't see what the Delta was saying there either, to be fair, but I think he's definitely not. He's definitely burning through quite a lot of battery. Let's just say that then, as we head down towards Parabolica now for the for Mr. Elite then. And unfortunately, I'm not quite sure it's going to be able to find much time in Sector 3, because that battery then like flashing away then to indicate that he's not got much electrical energy to play with. Then up to the line though, he has improved by 0.2 of a second. Then he goes P9. Then does Mr. Elite then 20.231 then on the board. And I think that might be his qualifying done and dusted. I don't think there's time for Mr. Elite to get himself back into the pit lane and go again there. So unfortunately, I think that might be qualifying done and dusted then for the for one of the Hasses. Here comes the other Hass then of Hungry Stars, then currently P7 then, but looking to improve and heading down towards Parabolica now as well. Then he's going to be flying down there. There's a car going slowly down. That's a Williams, I think, trying to get himself back in the pit lane of Liam as we head into Parabolica now. The final quarter, the final time for Styles in qualifying here. Then let's see what Styles can do then. Heading up to the line now, then goes the Hass. Then he's using all the battery then that he can afford as we go up to the line. It's a 19.8 then. He improves by 0.2 and goes onto the second row of the grid as well. Then Winnie has joined back. Unfortunately, I don't think Winnie's going to be able to get himself back in the car then to set another time then, so that might be qualifying done and dusted for Winnie. Styles as well in P4 then, currently on the second row of the grid. He might be displaced then if Smithy, if Jamie, if Mushroom, if Sand. Unfortunately, Sand is off the track then at the first turn then, so I'm not sure Sand is going to be able to improve as well. Then Mr. Elite then has gone through. Where has he gone then? He's gone through the Ascari chicane then. He's heading down towards Parabolica now. Liam is in the pit lane. Winnie has retired in the pits, unfortunately. I don't think he's got time to get himself back out again then, so that's Winnie's qualifying done and dusted. The same for Styles, the same for Mr. Elite as well, I believe. Although potentially Mr. Elite can go again then, but he's not got that that fuel light flashing then for the Haas then, indicates otherwise as well then. My goodness me, that we've got Astrotron then improving to P15, then 20.9 then for the McLaren, then unfortunately struggling in qualifying. Then let's see what we can do then in the race. Like we were saying, we could see some rain in the race, potentially, that is, as we got it's got a bit gloomy overhead then in this qualifying session as well. Then Luke then has done a 20.3 then 23.9 I should say then, but I think that might be Rocket Wolf then trying to get himself a time on the board then for Luke then. But Luke looks like he's going to be starting from the back of the grid then, which is not going to be very good stuff indeed for Luke, that is. Dan is back out on circuit then, looking to try and find that 2.5 tenths to get himself on pole position here then in Monza tonight then, but unfortunately over the curb then in turn 2 then it's not going to be promising stuff indeed. Jinner back in the pits, Styles back in the pits as well. Then Smithy then going through Ascari then looking to improve. Then where is that Mercedes then of Umabro? I think it is. No, it's not Umabro, it's Goddard's. Where is he then? He's down in P19. Let's see, down to, can he improve then? He goes to P17, then he improves then by almost 0.8 of a second. Then fantastic stuff indeed. We've got Ginger H crossing the line, then P13 then for the Racing Bull, then 20.5 for him in the Racing Bull car. Then I should say then Smithy then has not improved on his previous time. Then I think he's done exactly the same time again then has Smithy, according to the Delta, that is. That's fantastic. So yes, unfortunately for Smithy then stays P5. No, it's not San, it's Takanko then improves to P10 then in the Ferrari then at their home Grand Prix, of course. Then let's see where Jamie then crosses the line, stays P6 as well here, as the times are not improving then in the final attempts here in qualifying. It looks like, I should say, but of course that could change. And here comes Dan through Parabolica. Then can he find that 2 tenths that he needs then to get himself on pole position? He's currently on the front row of the grid. Then let's see if it's going to be enough then from Dan. It's not enough then, or it is enough then almost, but it's 2.5 tenths almost then from Dan, but it's not enough for pole position then. So Jinner is on pole position for the Italian Grand Prix. Fantastic stuff indeed then from Jinner as well there. And Rocket, of course, that said that all I did was try my best. And so good stuff. And Jenner then in P1, then pole position for the McLaren driver once again. Then 20.3 was my max, says Jake the Slayer. Then that has put him as somebody else's. I thought that was somebody leaving the session again. Then goodness me, that was put him into P12. Then it's to 20.2 then for Jake the Slayer. So that's not too shabby indeed. Right then, I think that's qualifying done and dusted. And like I said, no rain did fall in the end. That did start to get a bit gloomy overhead then, didn't it? From the bright sunshine we had at the beginning of qualifying, it has gone very, very overcast here. Then potentially we'll have to wait and see. We've been told there might be some rain then in the race, so we'll have to wait and see how it's going to unfold. We might have a bit of a chopping and changing in the weather then throughout the Grand Prix that's coming up then in just a jiffy. First we'll go through the classification then of qualifying. And there it is then. We've done a bit of a strange pose then as Jenner then celebrating his pole position, but he's on the top step then is the McLaren driver then. Dan P2, Winnie in P3, Styles in P4, Dynamo Dan P5, Smithy P6, Jamie in P7, Mushroom then has done a P8 then on the medium compound tyres. Very good stuff indeed. San and DeCanca in the Ferrari then at the home Grand Prix, then P9 and P10, then Mr. Elite P11, Jake the Slayer P12, Liam P13, Ginger Rage P14, Astra John in P15, Umabro and Goddard's then in the Mercedes P16 and 17, Real Ashton P18, Vintage P19, and Luke in P20. There we are then. So that is the order. Then we'll run through the race itself on the formation lap very shortly, but we'll firstly have a quick word from our lovely sponsors. Here we are then. We are ready to get racing then. Well, firstly, we'll go through a lovely formation lap, a nice chill formation lap then, as we get ourselves underway then. The top two then on the soft compound tyres, not a hard compound tyre in sight here in Monza tonight, and it is well, it's still overcast then, but we've been told it's all lies then from Ginger Age, and there is no rain. Well, there's no rain to start the race at least then, so we'll have to wait and see then if that's going to change then during the Grand Prix itself. Then it could be a interchangeable conditions then in this race. Then we'll have to wait and see then as we go through the 27 laps of action here in Monza tonight then. But Jenner then leads the way. Soft compound tyres for the pole sitter then, and Dan also on the front row, soft compound tyres for him. So those two are going to be very quick off the line for those on the Red Bull tyres as well. Jamie then in P7 then for the Williams driver, the Williams team I should say. Then let's see what Jamie can do then on those soft compound tyres as well. There's Jake the Slayer and Ginger Rage, both racing balls opting for the soft compound tyres here as well then to start off the first stint here in Monza then. So looking very quick indeed then, potentially looking very quick I should say, looking for a quick start then in this race. And Vintage as well then is the other driver on the soft compound tyres down in P19 unfortunately for Vintage, but looking for a few positions then off the start as well then, as ALR Esports needs to get muted, so bear me 1 second, I'll just do that. So, I can't do it, that's a shame. But anyway, hopefully ALR Esports can just mute himself in before we get ourselves racing then. Everybody else on the medium compound tyre then, so I'm not sure if Luke's actually in the car to be fair, but I think he has got himself, hopefully he's got himself back home now. Jinner then in P1 then will lead the way then, of course Jinner and Dan then trying to compete then for the top of the order then in the championship. Then Luke is also the championship leader, but only leading by 2 points from this man here, Dan, and he is going to be putting the pressure on Luke then to try and get himself into the championship lead then for round 13 with only 4 rounds remaining after this one. Then it could sway the championship then in Dan's favour here. Right then. Oh dear, Jenner's not parked in the right spot there, so he's going to be disqualified from the formation lap already. But right then, we are now just lining up on the grid then to start off 27 laps here of racing action here in Monza. Like I said, it's going to be very close indeed. Oh dear, did I just see rain start to fall on the formation lap then? I hope not. Maybe that was just a visual glitch. It's raining. It's already raining then. Goodness me then. It has started to rain here in Monza then on the formation lap then. And my goodness me, those who chose the soft compound tyres might be in a prime spot then if it starts to kick off then, as we get ourselves started then, and we'll quickly flick onto the position changes. Then the 5 red lights are on in Monza, then the 5 red lights are out, and away we go then. It's a good start then, I think, then from Dan Dan, and Winnie's on a great start on the medium compound tyres, but Dan Dan's taking the lead. There's action in the background, there's all sorts of carnage, and as we go through then down towards turn 1 then, wow, what's happened there then? It's a Racing Bull then, and it's a Mercedes, I think it was then. Dan Dan has not been able to hold on to the lead into turn 1 then, as we go through the first chicane. Then Dan Dan back down to P2, then there's all sorts of action. Then Ginger Rage's got a 10-second penalty for cutting the corner, and what's going on there? It's a Mercedes of you mad, bro. Then I think Real Ashton was involved in that. Luke's got himself through unscathed, I believe. But my goodness me, what is going on there then? Ginger Rage has lost out then, and my God, Liam's gone over the circuit then in the second chicane then. All sorts of anarchy then in the first lap then. I think the rain has maybe put a bit of a, well, not a bit of a damp squib, but a bit of a shock then to the system then. It definitely started raining for me then on the formation lap then. ALR Esports is still chatting away then to himself then in the lobby. Good stuff indeed. Then out in front, then Ginner leads the way then into Ascari. Then Ginner is trying to storm off then as well on those soft compound tyres then. Dan Dan already struggling then. Winnie then is reading him back in then on the mediums as well as we go down towards Parabolica then for the first time then. Everybody else has got himself through unscathed then. I'm not quite sure what happened in the background there then. Luke then is Luke's not having a good time out there either, and maybe Luke's got some damage as well then. Goodness me, as we go through then into the second lap, I should say. Then Dan Dan now is under pressure from Winnie. Then Winnie's looking to get himself a bit racy here as we start lap 2 now as well then. Softs will go off soon, says Kamara Racer. Then Lucas on route ETA 10 minutes, so unfortunately he's going to be too late then, I think, for Luke then, and unfortunately that's it then for Luke then in terms of keeping himself in the championship lead then, if he can't get himself into the session, that is, as we head through the first chicane once again then onto lap 2. Then we've got Smithy then trying to get himself past Jamie as well. Then Jamie's up 2 places into P5. Dynamo Dan's gained a place then into P4. Then Styles then dropping down 4 places then on the start then as well, then into P8, unfortunately then for Styles. Down 2 places is Mushroom on the medium compound tyres. Then Goddard's has got himself up 6 places there as well then. My goodness me, I think it was you Mabro then who had the issues then in the Mercedes, that is on the first lap then, on the opening straight I should say. And yes, I'm not quite sure what was going on there then into on the main straight then down towards turn 1 then on the opening lap then, unfortunately there. Here comes Dan Dan. It's definitely raining, and Dan Dan's taken the lead of the Grand Prix. Then DRS is enabled. Then Ginner is trying to fight it, but Dan Dan's got the DRS then into Ascari. Then Dan Dan takes the lead of the Grand Prix. Winnie all over the back of them as we go through Ascari as well. Then trying to make a move then through Ascari is not a really a side-by-side affair, let's just say that then, but it's going frantic pace indeed. Then Dynamo Dan getting his nose in there as well, then trying to get himself past Winnie into Parabolica. Around the outside we go then for the Red Bull. Then there's contact there. I think Winnie and Ginner have come together then as we go through. Then Winnie's gone dropping down the order, so has Ginner as well then as we go into the pit lane then, and Dan Dan's in the pits as well then, so the intermediate compound tyres going on the former race leaders then potentially. My goodness me, this is going to be close indeed then. Is it wet enough already for intermediate compound tyres then, only on the second lap of the race I should say then. Luke then is carrying on then. Umabro is coming into the pit lane. I think Umabro's got damage there, but he's got a 10-second penalty as well then for speeding in the pit lane then. But there's all sorts of pit stop activity, and wow, this is going to be absolutely epic. We did see it start to rain on the formation lap here, and this is going to be, oh my God, there's all sorts of action there as Liam and Astra John have gone off the circuit again then, and wow, it's definitely raining a bit too much here as well then. I think the intermediate compound tyres then are really definitely the time to be on now already then in this race that is pouring with rain then on lap 3 that, my goodness me, we haven't seen this before, I don't think, anyway. But there we go then. Dan Dan then making the right call then. He switched on to the intermediate compound tyres at the right time for sure then. And softs will go off, says Kamara Racer then, but the softs didn't need to go off. Well, I don't think they'll be going off on lap 3, and they probably didn't need to be on the car on lap 3 then, because Dan Dan and Ginner then have got themselves through then, and Winnie has passed Mr. Elite then into Ascari. They're all skated off into Ascari then. It's too wet then for the dry tyres then as we go through into Ascari as well then. They just can't keep the cars under control here as Jamie has been passed by Smithy. Dynamo Dan then takes the lead of the Grand Prix, and wow, it's only lap 3, guys, and well, this weather has definitely played a bit of a factor into this one as well. Then Winnie and Mr. Elite then switching places. Then Mr. Elite is going to go skating off the circuit there as we try and get ourselves through. Then I think they're going to all pile into the pit lane here. Dynamo Dan's into the pits as well. Then trying to get that car slowed down is the next question. Then Smithy trying to slow the car down. Then oh my God, Winnie's almost into the back of Jamie as we go into the pits as well. And everybody piling into the pit lane so quickly as well. Then Ginger Age in the pits as well. Then Decanco next to follow him in. We've got Astrodron with a 10-second battle. Then speeding in the pit lane, unfortunately then for Astrodron. Then where is Dan Dan? Dan Dan's coming through onto the main straight. Then he's going to retake the lead of the Grand Prix. Then Dan Dan flies flying through here, and Dan's up into the top spot then as well. Then he takes the lead of the Grand Prix, takes the championship lead on the net championship lead, I should say, as it stands as well then. And Luke's got a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Luke's race is going from bad to worse here then for the kicks over then for the former championship leader now, I should say then. Hard compound tyres going on for Liam's car then. Unfortunately, that's the wrong call, I think then. And the same for Luke then. Luke is in the pit lane now. He's gone on the intermediate compound tyres. I think Liam's had a bit of an issue then because he's gone onto the hard compound, and that is definitely not the right tyre to be on now. And he can't even get the car slowed down then for turn one as we go off the track then for the Williams driver then. And resuming now as well as we get ourselves back on then. Liam then has now got 10-second penalty for them for corner cutting now. I think he needs to slow down and let DeCanco go through. Then Luke then back down the back of the order, I should say. Then Luke is really having an issue then trying to get that car slowed down as well. Then Liam has lost out to DeCanco then on the hard compound tyres. It's just not the right call then, and Liam is having issues. Then he's got to let the cars go through. Then I think then he's just very wise then is Liam, just trying to get himself out of the way. Then Winnie has got himself past Jamie then on the intermediate compound tyres as well. And then now everyone's on the intermediates apart from one who's yet to pit again, or going to have to pit again, I think then for Liam, unfortunately there. Wow, my goodness me, then. So it's got all action back then. Well, you did see a bit of spot of rain then on the formation lap then, at the end of the formation lap then, we're watching the grid. And it has gone, well, it's gone from that to this, really, in the next lap or so. Serious Mushroom passing Jake the Slayer for P11, that is. I think a couple of drivers had to double stack there as well, then, didn't they, after their teammates? I think Mr. Elite was ahead of Styles then, and I think Winnie was ahead of Mushroom as we go through then onto lap 5 now. Dan leads the way then. He has 2.3 seconds ahead then of Jinner then as well. Go through then Mr. Elite and Jamie then switching places then down the main straight then Mr. Elite up into P6 now, I should say. And those who did set the car up for the wet tyres, I think is going to be well, maybe the right call very well indeed then, didn't they? But yes, there we go then as we head on to lap 5 now of 27 then. Goodness me, is it going to get even worse than this then in terms of the conditions as well? Then it's very treacherous out there indeed. Liam's got another 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and unfortunately Liam's day is going from bad to worse then after going onto the wrong tyres then in the pit stops as well then. Liam then dropping down the back of the order then, 1.7 seconds the gap then out in front. Then Jinner is reeling that Alpine in then in the first few laps here. Then Dynamo down then in P3 then. He's looking for another podium then. Is Dynamo down then, but Smithy Almighty is catching as well then, as is Winnie, as is Mr. Elite and Jamie as well then, and San then in the Ferrari as well there. Good stuff indeed. My goodness me. What a start then here in Monza then for bronze then. And I think we've had, we've definitely had two, I can't remember what happened then. We've definitely had 2 wet races then, with Silver then being an absolute downpour as well last night then. And unfortunately the Italian sunshine then is not shining on us then this round then, it seems. But there we go, we have to wait and see then how the driver's going to fare in this one as well. Then Umabro and DeCanco then in a bit of a battle then. Let's have a look and see what this one's going to be going like then in the Ascari chicane. And Ginger Ray just joined the fight as well here then. Can he get himself past 2 of them then down towards Parabolica then, flying down towards this next and final turn then of the circuit then into the braking zone then. He thinks better of it then and backs out then, very wise indeed. Then Sam has passed Jamie then. Jamie is struggling in the intermediate conditions, I think, and unfortunately then for the Williams driver it is not going his way then, especially on that main straight. Maybe they've got a lot more downforce, maybe he's got less downforce, more downforce I should say then, so he can be better in the corners then, but he needs to keep the traction then right as well as you go through to Curva Grande then. Unfortunately that Williams then back end stepping out there, and we head through then. DeCanco has been passed by Ginger Age into the first chicane then. Ginger Age, oh dear, he's gone very deep then into turn 2. That could open the door then for DeCanco to try and get himself back through, and Umabro's down to P17 for the time being. Winnie has passed Smithy. Where is he? Yes, there he is then into the first Lesmo there, so very inopportune overtaking manoeuvre as well then for Smithy, for Winnie I should say. And now up into P4 then is Winnie. Can he chase down Dynamo Dan for the final podium place then? Dynamo Dan 6 seconds behind the top 2 then, and Jinner has caught up to Dan then. And Jinner then, of course, the pole sitter then has got himself back through then and into contention for the race lead once again then as we go down towards Parabolica then on lap 6 then, soon to be lap 7 then. We've got 20 more laps to go then after this one, so there's still plenty of action to unfold here in bronze. And my goodness me, it's already unfolded in the first few laps as well, hasn't it, to be fair? It's been action-packed, let's just say that, and I think the weather conditions had a lot to play in that action-packed as well, action-packedness as well. And I should say then Ginger Age unfortunately getting a penalty then going over the curbs. And Ascari is up to P15. and is now trying to chase down Styles then as his next target in penalty situation. As unfortunately 10 seconds, I think there's quite a few drivers who sped in the pit lane, and Liam's got two 10-second penalties then, one for speeding in the pit lane and one for the cutting the corner then at the first chicane when he couldn't slow the car down. Then there's contact there, and Serious Mushroom just turned into Real Ashton then into the main straight then. Fantastic stuff indeed. Dan has lost the lead, then Jinner is up into P1, then he gets through the Delarosa chicane, then taking P1 away then from the Alpine of Dan, and now can he charge off into the distance? He's been pretty quick indeed then, trying to reel in that Alpine. Can he now use the clear air then to his benefit as well then for the McLaren driver and McLaren team, that is, in the championship standings as well? So far so good then. Like I said, a lot of drivers then struggling in those conditions and to slow the cars down and getting into the pit lane, and that is why there's a few 10-second penalties out there for those drivers as well then. And unfortunately that is that is part and parcel then as we go through then into Ascaria once again. Then a fantastic camera angle then from the helicopter as we go down the back straight towards Parabolica then to finish off lap 7 of 27. Brilliant stuff indeed so far as well then as we go through finishing off this lap as well then. Fantastic. Dynamo Dan then is slightly caught up then as well. Then we've got Winnie trying to go down the outside, the Parabolica here then. Can he hold it? Not quite. Then can he cut underneath then the Red Bull as we go through the final corner? It's going to be side by side out of here. There's almost contact then, and Dynamo Dan, if he can't lose the car then, because if he causes that incident, that is going to be treacherous stuff indeed. And the speed as we go down the main straight, then Dynamo Dan has got better drag reduction I should say then, and heading into the first turn then he has got the place, he kept the place I should say then, ahead of Winnie for the time being then. But Winnie then has been reeling him in then in the last couple of laps or so then, and all over the back now of that podium place as well then. Jake the Slayer's got himself past Real Ashton into the first chicane, then Real Ashton's doing a good job there in the Red Bull then to try and get himself some first points of the season potentially then as we go through into the Curva Grande. He's got Astrodron for company as well. Then Hungry Styles is 5 seconds back. Hungry Styles seems to be struggling out there unfortunately then for the Haas car then. ALR Esports is still typing away then unfortunately, well not typing away, he's chatting away then, and we go through then into lap 8 now as well. Then so far so good then, and we go through into lap 8 then. There's still lots of action to unfold here as we get ourselves through, but there we are then. So far so good then. And like I said, it's calmed down a bit now, which is nice to see. But there we are. Yes, it's calmed down a bit now, I should say, but unfortunately, like I said, it's not going the way. Sorry, 1 second. It's not going the way for some drivers then with those penalties as well then. Like I said, especially in interchangeable conditions then, getting the car slowed down just for the pit entry then can be make or break your race, can't it, as well then with the penalty situation then for speeding in the pits, that is, unfortunately. So we're going to have to see. Oh dear, is Astrodron then keeping the car under control very nicely indeed there, but might have lost a couple of tenths or so then, but kept it pointing in the right direction overall then, that is, which is good stuff. Now trying to chase down Jake the Slayer then for that P11 position as well here. And yeah, like I said, from lap 1, or from the formation lap, it started raining on the formation lap, didn't it then? And I'm not sure nobody really sort of thought, oh, okay, I'll start on the intermediate compound tires. I'm not sure they can actually do that, to be fair. But it definitely wasn't raining then as we began the formation lap. Then it started drizzling then on the formation lap at the very end. And, well, at the end of lap 2, the heavens opened. And it is definitely, it's changed so quickly then from the dry compound tyres that we started the race on, then only for a lap or two, and everybody had to bail it into the pit lane to get themselves onto the intermediate compound tyres then, and Astrodron then trying to keep up then with Jake the Slayer, who's currently in P11 as we stand now. Right then, out in front then we've got Winnie then still chasing down Dynamo Dan. Then Dan has lost 1.7 seconds to Jinner then. Jinner got himself past then and back up into the race lead, then is now trying to storm off into the distance here in the McLaren, and so far so good then. Here comes Winnie then all over the back of Dynamo Dan, heading into Parabolica now then, making sure that he keeps that distance as we go into the braking zone then. But now can he power out the corner then? Can he get himself up into the podium places then onto the main straight? Goodness me, they've both gone very wide there as we go through onto lap 10 then. And here comes Winnie then. He's getting closer and closer then. Can he burn some battery then? He's not burning any batteries to go down towards the first chicane, and he stays in P4 for the time being. Good stuff indeed, Mr. Elite. Then P6, then he's behind Smithy Almighty then as we go through the first chicane as well then, and gap starting to emerge as we go then. San up into P7, good stuff from him then. Jamie then, unfortunately, intermediate conditions then just not working for Jamie at this point of the race, unfortunately for him then. Goddard's then on his debut then up into P9 as well, then looking pretty good then for the Mercedes driver. Then Sirius Mushroom in P10 now. Jake the Slayer then 3 seconds back, then in P11, then Astrodron then all over the back of that racing ball, then heading through the Curva Grande. Then can he get himself up into P11 here as well? Then Ashton Army then currently on for his first points of the season here as it stands in, of course, the top 15 score in bronze in this season as well. But Styles might have something to say about that as well, then, to be fair. Styles is going for it. Winnie's got himself up into P3. Has it? Yes, he has. He's passed the Red Bull of Dynamo down, then into Ascari we go. And now into the podium places then for the Aston Martin. Then can he try and catch up then to the top two? Then it would be a very fantastic task if he can do it. But we'll have to wait and see then. He's already got himself quite a bit of time then through the Ascari chicane then. Maybe Dynamo down there was a bit of a blockade then for Winnie. Then Winnie is now storming off into Parabolica and has almost got himself a 1 second gap then down that one straight then. So Winnie then is looking pretty keen then in these wet conditions then through Parabolica then onto lap 11 now, and 5.5 seconds the gap then to Dan then is his next target then up the road. Jamie then and San then once again then these two fighting away down towards the back straight then. Luke is now in control of the car then. Unfortunately, it's a bit too late, unfortunately, and to be honest, I'm not sure we can carry on that sort of way then in the future, unfortunately, there, because Luke needs to be in the car from the get-go, really. But yeah, you can't be swapping drivers around then in league racing, unfortunately, there. Yeah, he's, yeah, we'll deal with that then after the race then. But yes, good stuff indeed then, and we'll crack on. Yes, it's a bit of a difficult conditions then in this Italian Grand Prix for everybody, to be fair, including Luke as well. Then as we go, Yumabro then passing to Kanko. Then De Kanko's off the circuit then at the first chicane. Then goodness me, and trying to get himself back underway. Then I'm not sure if there was a helping hand from Yumabro there or if there was something else going on then for the Ferrari then. But he seems to be all intact then, does De Kanko, although going very wide then through the Curva Grande. Then I'm not quite sure what was going on there between those two then. Mercedes and Ferrari then having issues. Then Winnie's got a 3-second penalty then going through into Ascari then, and my goodness me then, of course, he's on a charge now, but unfortunately that 3-second penalty then will be compounded then at the end of the race then on his classification as well then, goodness me. So what currently he's probably not going to be too much too worried about that, to be honest, because he's going to try and get himself a gap then to those behind them. But if he tries to get himself in contention with the top two, then they might have something to say. Then they could just sit behind him for a few more laps and then get themselves to the end of the Grand Prix and reclaim the top spots then. But we'll find out as we get ourselves through the race then. Well, thank you very much, Rocket Wolf, for the updates then. Astrodron has passed the Racing Bull of Jake the Slayer then for P11 now, and up into the higher echelons then as well. The Hungry Styles and Real Ashton. Where is Real Ashton? He's in the pit lane then, is Real Ashton. So maybe what's going on here then? Potentially it could be a strategy call then for Real Ashton. Let's see what it's going to be then for the Red Bull. What's it going to be then? Is it wet compound tyres going on that Red Bull then? We'll have to wait and see then. It is wet compound tyres going on. So very interesting stuff indeed then. Is it now the heavy wet? There is a lot of spray even in the pit lane then, even at the slower speed, and potentially Real Ashton could have called this to a T then as we head out of the pit lane now. It's down to P18 then, but of course is the first driver to pit then for the wet compound tyres here in Monza, and wow, is this going to be the right call then is the question. Then if Real Ashton has called this, it is going to be a fantastic call as well then. Smithy has passed Dynamo down towards the up towards Ascari now as we head into sector 3 then, as Real Ashton, sorry, not Real Ashton, then Dynamo Dan, who is Real Ashton's teammate, is wow, he's having a bit of a problem then through Ascari then, as is Mr. Elite, who's got caught up in right behind him as well then. Dynamo Dan starting to struggle on these intermediate compound tyres. Maybe it is an indicator that the wet compound tyre is the better tyre. Then Ginner then stays out then on to lap 13 goes the race leader. Then Dan stays out as well then. Let's see if the wet compound tyre is going to be the better tyre. It's definitely well, worse now in terms of the weather conditions, isn't it? And well, some people didn't know there was going to be rain on this one, so my goodness me, they might have been wrong, let's just say that there. But we go into the first chicane then. None of the top of the order have pitted just yet. Then Sirius Mushroom is trying to pass Goddard's then for that P9 position, then heading down towards the first chicane. And there we are then. He's got himself up into P9 now, does the Aston Martin, and good stuff indeed. Jake the Slayer then all over the back of Astrodron. Of course, these two just switch roles then, or switch positions, I should say. Then Liam's got a 3-second bonus. Then unfortunately for Liam, it's just not going his way tonight then, is it? But fair play for Liam to cracking on then. Real Ashton then on the wet compound tyres. He's not reeling in vintage, and I think he's lost only a tenth of a second or so then, so it's quite close. It's quite on the borderline then for Real Ashton. But we'll have to wait and see then if the wet compound tyres then start to become the tyre to be on then in the next few laps or so. Then potentially, if this rain keeps up then as it is, then it would definitely be the case. But so far so good. So far, so good, I should say, then, for those who are still going out there on the the intermediate compound tyres, then, goodness me, Mr. Elite then up into P5, then passing Dynamo down, who's starting to struggle and on the intermediate compound tyres in that Red Bull, it looks like, as we head down the back straight towards Parabolica once again, then Mr. Elite then up into P5, then can he try and get himself back in the fight with Smithy Almighty, then, who's trying to catch back up to Winnie, but Winnie, I think, is extending that gap ever so slightly then as we go through the laps as well, then, but Winnie is bringing that gap down then to Dan, then it's now under 4 seconds, and it was over 5.5, wasn't it, when he got himself up into P3. He has got himself another 1.5 seconds to try and find, or 1.5 seconds as we go Dynamo Dan, then back past, then into turn 1, then it's going to be close indeed. Yes, he's got himself the move, and back up into P5, I should say then. I think Dynamo Dan then has got a lot more straight line speed than than most of the rest of the field, I should say. As we head through the Curva Grande, then he holds on to P5 as well there. Good stuff indeed then, but unfortunately I think it's just through the corners that he's starting to struggle. Then the Mr. Elite then looking to shape for a move then into the Della Roger chicane there, but not quite then for the Haas. Then he has to sit in P6 for the time being. Jamie then has got himself up into gear as well then once again then, and now into the fight then for that P5 position. Then they're losing time behind Dynamo Dan as we go through into the second Lesmo now, as there goes the Williams as well. They're flying through then as we go. Oh dear, he's gone a bit wide then, and so is Mr. Elite then. Goodness me, almost flying off the circuit then did Mr. Elite, but thankfully he managed to stick on the grey stuff. And oh dear, it's going to be dicey indeed if you can't go side by side through there. Then he thinks better of it than does Mr. Elite. Then good stuff indeed. Jamie's got a penalty then through into the entry of Ascari, unfortunately then for all the Williams driver. Then as we head through and onto the back straight now, lap 14 then, soon to be lap 15 I believe. But will we see some more drivers then start to pit then for the wet compound tyres then? Real Ashton has gained some time then on vintage, but only a couple of tenths or so then, but it is coming down now for Real Ashton then, so potentially we're starting to see the conditions then start to phase in then for the wet compound tyres, and we'll have to find out then if that's going to be the call then in the next few laps or so. But like I was saying, it's been getting ever worse then throughout the start then from the formation lap. The rain has started and is getting ever worse as well now, so unfortunately then it is as ALR Esports is once again then chatting away, but unfortunately then it's just not going too well then for those who have as I say that, then Real Ashton has taken chunks out of Vintage's time then. I'm not sure if Vintage made a mistake then through Ascari potentially, but Real Ashton is flying now on those wet compound tyres then, so potentially this is where we're seeing the transition period then for the wet compound tyres. Potentially Vintage made a bit of an error there, but he is coming into the pit lane is Vintage, so maybe we're seeing a roles reversed, a roll call then for the wet compound tyres. Then Vintage is going to go into the pit lane. Let's see what Vintage is going to do then. Is it going to be more inches, or is it going to be wet compound tyres? Then it's wet compound tyres for the other Alpine as well then, so now there's two drivers on the wet compound. We will see what is going to be the best tyre now, or even better, we'll see what the situation is going to be then as we go through. Then Luke then, like I said, has got himself I think into P18 then, but unfortunately then I think he's got a 10-second penalty as well then, but also just trying to struggle on in this race. Then Ginger Age has passed Styles then for P13 then. Oh my god, Ginger Age has got a 3-second penalty, then Styles has gone in the back of the racing ball. Into the pits comes Ginner, the race leader. Then Ginner is calling it a day then on the first set of intermediate compound tyres. Winnie also in then intermediates again then for Ginner. What is that going to say then for the rest of the field as well? Then Winnie is going to come into the pits as well. Then what's it going to be for the Aston Martin? It's more intermediate compound tyres again then, and Smithy is also in as well then, so my goodness me, there's more stops coming on along then. Serious Mushroom is pit behind his teammate. Then Jake the Slayer's got a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, my goodness me, and Serious Mushroom then decided once again to double stack then behind his teammate then, and unfortunately I don't think that's going to help him then in terms of gaining any time in the pit stop phase then. Goddard's has gone for wet compound tyres. There's yellow flags for DeCanco at the final corner there. And he needs to get himself, firstly, onto the track then and out of the way then of those coming through, and get himself back underway then out of the final corner then. Goddard's coming out then in P14 then. It missed, Umabro's got himself up into P13, but yet to pit then, or yet to pit again I should say then. Jake the Slayer coming out of the pit lane in P15 here. DeCanco's got himself a 10-second bit of the speed in the pit lane. Unfortunately it's not going too well then for the Ferrari driver as well. Then Liam is now got himself in contention as well. Then Vintage on the wet compound tyres then, so only 3 drivers have gone for the wet compound tyres. Then Jinner has stayed on the wets, on the intermediate compound tyres. Then Winnie has gone for the inters. Same for Smithy, same for Mushroom as well. Then Goddard's then has gone for the wet compound tyres. Then in the Mercedes, then Jake the Slayer has gone for inters as well. Then DeCanco into the pits then for more intermediate compound tyres for the Ferrari driver as well here. Good stuff indeed. Then Donovan Dan then as like I said, Dan is staying out. Then Dan is struggling on then on the intermediate compound tyres here, and wow. What we're going to see here then, Jinner's got himself past his teammate. Jinner, then where is Jinner then, as San is pitting now as well, then where is Jinner in comparison to Dan then, the former race leader then is Jinner. 18 seconds the gap then, just under 18 seconds then. Can he get that gap down then in the next 10 laps or so then to try and get himself back into the race lead? I think it might be a formality, to be honest. If Dan wants to try and stay out and struggle on then on those intermediate compound tyres, then we've got more action as Winnie's got himself up into P8 now. Ginger Ragen's got himself up into P7 as well here as we go through then into lap 17. Then it's all more action as with pit stop phases have chucked everything into contention as well. Then Styles also in the pit lane for more intermediate compound tyres. Umabro stays out, then Goddard's then up into P13. Styles will come out ahead of Jake the Slayer. I think that it's going to be close. Then Jake the Slayer takes P14, then Styles out in P15. Real Ashton then, I think on the wet compound tyres, it's just not working out then for Real Ashton, and potentially those wet compound tyres are not the one then. Jamie then has passed Sing Dynamo Dan then for P3. Then Jamie's on a charge now on those intermediates, and I think Dynamo Dan after the last couple of laps or so, he's been struggling on these intermediate compound tyres as we go through into Ascari now, but keeping it clean and tight then through there is going to be paramount. Then 6 seconds back then is Jinner then on the fresh inters as we head into Ascari. Then he's gone wide. That's going to be a warning, I'm sure, then for the McLaren as we go through the final chicane then onto the back straight, then down towards the Parabolica now as we head through. Then 9 seconds the gap then for Dan who's pitting now. Dan the next race leader then is in the pits there, calling it a day then on the intermediate compound tyres. I think unfortunately for him then he will lose out the race lead and back to Jinner as well there. Potentially could still hold on to it, but you never know, maybe even Winnie could try and undercut here. And wow, Winnie then, oh my goodness me, that's close indeed. Jake says got a 3-second bonus, then we go through. Then Ginger Rage in the pit lane, got a 10-second bonus for speeding in the pits. Unfortunately for Ginger Rage then as we go through. Then Astra John up into P3 as Jinner has taken P2. Then he's 7 seconds behind. Oh, and he's not 7 seconds as Winnie has been jumped by Dan has been jumped by Winnie. Goodness me, I can't get my words out. Then Dynamo Dan out of the pit lane in P9, and my goodness me, it's just not worked out for those who stayed out for a bit longer there. As oh dear, I thought that was a Red Bull going off the circuit then. My goodness me, then it's all anarchy all over the place, to be fair. Ginger Rage has come out ahead of his teammate, has he? Oh, it's going to be close into turn 1 then, and the Ginger Rage, I think, is conceded then to Jake the Slayer for the time being, that is. Of course, he's got a lap, or 2 lap fresher tyres than his teammate, who's just ahead of him then by a couple of tenths of a second there as well then. So maybe the wet compound tyres are not the call then. Maybe the wet compound tyres are not the one then, as Mr. Elite has got himself past San then into the first Lesmo, which is very good stuff indeed then. But up into P7 now for Mr. Elite, then good stuff indeed. Trying to get himself back in contention. Of course, there's two drivers yet to pit then, well, not yet to pit, but 2 drivers that might have to pit as well then, in terms of getting rid of those old tyres, that is, as Vintage and DeCanco switching places down the main straight in towards turn 1. And there we go then. I'm not sure the wet compound tyres were the call then. It looked like they were at one point, but potentially it started to the rain has started to abate slightly. Then Luke up into P16 now. But currently then, unfortunately for Luke, then he will be losing out to the championship lead then to his rivals. Then Dan has been passed by Winnie, but Winnie has got a penalty, of course, remember, so that will come back to bite him, unfortunately. Then if Dan is going to be this close, then Goddard has got himself past his teammate into or out of Ascari, then down towards Parabolica now as well. Then on the wet compound tyres is Goddard's then on his debut, of course, in ALR. My goodness me, that car does not want to stick, does it? And Umabro then also doing the same, then going through the Parabolica as well. Both Mercedes then getting a bit flighty through there. and thankfully they got themselves through unscathed as well. But Ginger Rage now is catching up then, as is Jake the Slayer as well. Then Ginger Rage got himself past his teammate, and on a charge now is the Ginger. Then good stuff indeed. Then Star Wars then is also in this battling pack as well. Then as we head through into the first chicane, and now Moke Mercedes, both Racing Bulls and a Haas then are all involved in this battle then for P11 as it stands. Of course, there's going to be some more points on offer potentially as well, with a couple of others get to pit then out in front then, and but so far Jamie's doing a good job out there, to be fair. He's got almost just under a 5-second gap then to Gino. Of course, Gino has pitted 3 laps ago now, but he's soldiering on out there very well indeed. Same for Astrodron in the McLaren, and he's looking pretty good out there for some good points tonight then as well then for the McLaren as well. Of course, provided those tyres hold on that is, but we'll have to wait and see then if that's going to be the case as well. Then Dan then trying to catch up then to Winnie when he's done 2 extra laps on those intermediate compound tyres. They should be fine to the end of the Grand Prix, but we did see them start to struggle around the 10 lap mark then on the first stint. Of course, it was a bit lighter, then potentially the track was slightly drier, but we'll have to wait and see then if they're going to hold on, or how well they're going to hold on, I should say, then to the end. Then in the pits comes Astrodron then, so he's calling it a day then on the intermediate compound tyres as well. Then will he go for the wets then, or will he decide that it's another set of intermediate compound tyres for the McLaren? Then it's more inters, and he's serving, I think he's serving a penalty then as well. Then yes, he is. He's serving a 10-second penalty, unfortunately for Astrodron. So that painful time where you're sitting still there and they can't service the car, then now they can, and unfortunately that is cost him dearly as well then. But of course now the good thing is that at least it's wiped off the memory then, as into the pits comes Umabro then into the pits as well. Then once again then, unfortunately for Umabro, then he's calling it a day then, I think a bit too late then on these intermediate compound tyres. 17 laps then for Umabro on the inters then. Unfortunately, I don't think it was the right call there. Luke up into P15. Luke now into the points paying positions here as well then, which is good stuff. Real Ashton up into P16 then, not too far away then from points then for Real Ashton then, could potentially get himself some first points of the season potentially here. We'll have to wait and see. But he needs to keep himself going in the right direction for this one as well. Then Umabra then onto fresh intermediate compound tyres will be a threat as well. Then Liam then has carried on, then has got himself up into P17 here as well. Then good stuff indeed. Did Kanker then, and Vintage then would be, well, unfortunately at the back of the order for the time being then. But if there's anything that goes untoward, they could get themselves back in contention. Then as here comes Ginger Rage storming down the inside of the second Lesmo. Goddard's then as Donovan picked up a penalty, then Goddard's then dropping down to P11. Then Ginger Rage into the top 10 now as it stands. 11 seconds off Mushroom for the time being then, but there we are then. Styles and Goddard's then in a bit of a fight. Then Jake the Slayer's dropped off the to the back of this queue for the time being, that is. And oh dear, Ginger Rage's got a 3-second bonus then, but he's now storming off into the distance. Then is the Racing Bull then on the freshest intermediate compound tyres in the top 10. So it's not looking too shabby then for Ginger Rage. Goodness me, I thought Goddard's then was going to have a bit of collision then with Styles. Then Styles trying to go up and under, and can he go up and under? There's a question through Parabolica now. Then trying to get the power down. Then he's whoa! Oh my goodness me, that's getting close indeed then, and. I think there's lightning. Is that lightning, or is that just the lights then flashing through on the main straight then? It definitely would indicate it's wet compound tyres if that's the case then, but they're still carrying on the intermediate compound tyres, that is. But yes, maybe it's very realistic then. Nobody wants to use the wet compound tyres unless it is completely soaked out on track. Then there's still a line that is relatively forming there, which probably shows you where the on-track action is going to be then for the remaining 7 laps then of this Grand Prix, including this one as well. Let's run through the penalties very quickly indeed as well then. We've got 3 seconds for Jamie then. He's been reeled in. He's now, Jake the Slayer's got himself past Goddard's as well. There's wet compound tyres I don't think working at this stage for Goddard's as well then, and a few others out there on the wet compound then, unfortunately then, as we go through then. We've got 3 seconds for Jamie then. He's now going to lose that gap then to Jenner as well then with that 3 seconds. Winnie's got 3 seconds as well then, and trying to get that gap broken then to Dan then. He would lose out on a podium place as it stands then, and Dan back into the podium places as well here. Smithy Almighty then in looking pretty good then. Dynamo Dan's got 3 seconds, and unfortunately it wouldn't cost him anything, but unfortunately it's just not been his race tonight then, unfortunately so far. Serious Mushroom also 3 seconds, again would not affect his position as it stands then. Ginger Rage's got 19 seconds then, goodness me. He might still be able to finish then in the top 15 to be fair, but he's going to have to go great guns now, and he is going great guns to be fair on those intermediate compound tyres. Then 13 seconds for Slayer, his teammate as well then, and goodness me, there's lots of penalties out there as well then, unfortunately for the Racing Bull team. 10 seconds for Luke as well then. Can he keep that gap then to Real Ashton? Then Real Ashton then is struggling out there, and seems to be struggling with his connection as well to be fair. But hopefully he can get himself, keep himself in the race then, at least then, because he's really struggling, it looks like. But hopefully he can keep himself in the race then, because potentially then, if anything goes awry then for one driver ahead of him, he could get himself his first points of the season. Then Liam's got 23 seconds, then Liam's soldiering on out there, which is fair play indeed. The same for Umabra then as well, then, and Ducanco and Vintage then, who are powering on then here in the Italian Grand Prix, then back onto the tyre compounds then, and unfortunately ALR Esports is still chattering away then to himself, so that's fantastic. But there we are then. So we've got the driver of the day poll out in the comment section as well there. Good stuff indeed. So driver of the day candidates are Winnie, Smithy, Ginner and Dan. Which Dan is that then? I'm not quite sure. But there's a Dan in there, and I think it might be Dan down there, because Dan is on for a podium still here then. He's only got, well, to be fair, Winnie is on a charge then, and Winnie could try and get that gap then. It needs to be 3 seconds for Winnie to hold on to that P3 position, and it is getting very close indeed between the Alpine and the Aston Martin then. Well, it needs to be closest in 3-second gap, that is then, for Winnie's sake, that is. Dan needs to try and keep it underneath that 3 seconds, but he's gained a lot of time then into the first chicane then. That is fantastic then from Dan, and wow, that gap was over almost at 2.8 seconds, and it's down to 2.4, so brilliant stuff indeed. I think similar to Dynamo Dan, then Winnie might have a bit of a faster setup down the straights then, but in the corners then, that is where the Alpine of Dan is making up the time then. Goddard's in the pit lane, calling it a day on the wet compound tyres, is going to promote Real Ashton into the points paying positions here, which is fantastic stuff indeed to see. Luke then up into P14 then, so now Luke on 2 points then for the Kick Sauber. Of course, Luke then is, oh dear, we've got changing for the lead then, we've got Ginner then passing, Jamie then for P1, then Ginner of course on the fresher tyres. Jamie then may be struggling then on those intermediate compound tyres at this point now, but I think he's trying to get himself to the end of the Grand Prix here is Jamie, and is still on for a good result here tonight then in the Williams, and so far so good then. He is the only driver still to soldier on then, apart from Luke then. And Luke trying to get himself a few more places here as well then. Real Ashton is up into the top 15 then, could be on for his first points of the season. He needs to try and stick it out then for the next 5 laps, I think it is then. No, 4.5 laps I think that is now, as we go through then into the De La Rocha chicane now as well then for the Red Bull then. Good stuff indeed. And could it be the time then, but Goddard is going to have something to say about that on his fresh intermediate compound tyres as well here. Goodness me, it could get very difficult towards the end of this Grand Prix then. Vintage has been lapped, I think then, has he? Or has he had an issue there into the no, he hasn't been lapped just yet then. Jamie is trying to fight back then with Ginner then, but Ginner is still holding on to the lead of Grand Prix, heading through the Curva Grande then. Vintage is just ahead of us there. He is then in the foreground, but in the background we've got, oh my goodness me, Jamie and Ginner then all fighting then for the lead of the Grand Prix, and Ginner's gone a bit deep then, and that could open the door for Jamie on the much older tyres to try and fight back for the race lead here. Umabro's passed Liam for P17 here as well then. Goodness me, all action packed then out in front as well then, it looks like. Blimey. Fantastic stuff indeed. Dan has got that gap back down to around the 2-second mark then, so reeling in, or reeling back in the Aston Martin of Winnie then to keep him in that contention for a podium here as well then. Jamie is doing a brilliant job then as well then. Jamie then holding on to that P2 position then. He's not, Ginner's not been able to scamper away then from the Williams driver as we head through Ascari now, and Vintage I think has been passed then by the leaders now as well then. Unfortunately for Vintage then, Ducanco has passed Liam, then Liam's back in the pit lane to call it a day then on the intermediate compound tyres then as well for the Williams team. Real Ashton is being caught very quickly indeed then by Goddard, who's on the fresh intermediate compound tyres, and so unfortunately Real Ashton would be dropped out of the points paying positions as it stands. Jamie then coming through then to try and regain the lead here, potentially on track, but of course with the penalty situation then that would not be in his favour then. 3 laps to go here in Monza then. It's been action packed all the way through then in Monza as well, and like I said, with rain starting on the formation lap then, with everyone on dry compound tyres, thankfully nobody did start on the hard compound tyre to be fair, but they made the right call then for those who started on the softs especially then to try and maximise the pace. Then here comes Mushroom maximising his pace down the main straight then. Can he get past that very slippery Red Bull then as we go through then down towards the first chicane? Oh no, we can't see that angle. Yep, but Dynamo Dan holds on then into the first turn then, that is. We'll see if Mushroom can get past on another attempt there as well then. Jake the Slayer has lost out to Astrodron as those two carry on their fight then. 5-6 seconds back now is Luke then. Luke trying to get himself at least some points then in this race then. He's going to have to try and fight. Well, he's got himself a 10-second gap then. Jake the Slayer and Astrodron then into turn 1 then. Astrodron then losing out to the Racing Ball then for the time being. Of course, Jake the Slayer has got some penalties to be added on to his Grand Prix at the end of the race as well then. Real Ashton then, sorry, Luke then has got himself a 10-second penalty then, but Luke then currently not in threat then to the region of Real Ashton. Then Real Ashton is going to have to deal with Goddard's then, who is flying on his intermediate compound tyres then in towards turn 1 then. Real Ashton, where's he gone then? He's just gone off the circuit then to let the Mercedes through, unfortunately. Then that's well, not putting up the fight then, maybe realising he's on the wrong tyres then, and DeCanco and Umabro have made contact then into the first turn then. DeCanco then has got himself on the curb as well then. My goodness me, what has happened there then between the Mercedes and the Ferrari once again then? And I think DeCanco went a bit too fast then into that corner. Then Jamie's had an issue then because he's lost 2 seconds to Ginner in that last lap. Then potentially those tyres then are starting to struggle here then for the Williams now, and Winnie then is all over the back as well as we go through then into lap 26, the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix of Monza. Fantastic. Like there's Dan, there's 2.5 seconds behind, then Astra John and Jake the Slayer once again resuming their battle. Into Parabolica goes the McLaren then ahead now of the Racing Bull. Good stuff indeed then. Right then, Dan is 2.5 seconds behind Winnie then. He's got 2 drivers with penalties ahead of him then. Let's have a look and see. 6 seconds for Winnie then, sorry. Goodness me then. Oh dear, and Winnie and Jamie then, Winnie's gone off, Jamie's gone off the circuit slightly there as well then. Heading through then into the first Lesmo then. And I think Jamie then is starting to struggle then, but Winnie's now got 6 seconds of penalties then. Dan could be back up into P2 as it stands with the penalty situation as well then out there for the 2 ahead of him. Ginner then is in control. And looking very good indeed then, and potentially Smithy. Can Smithy sneak his way onto a podium position here as well? Potentially, we'll find out then for Kick Sauber. Mystery holding down P6 very nicely indeed then. Same for San in P7 so far. So good then for San then on looking for some good points here tonight then. Dynamo Dan looking to hold on to P8 then. Serious Mushroom holding on to P9 as well then. Ginger Rage might have a bit of a threat then from Styles then and from Astra John then. But will be able to get himself some points here tonight then in this very wet Monza indeed. Good stuff indeed as well. Right then, out in front then, Winnie is on a charge. Winnie is almost caught up back to Ginner as well then. Ginner has been reeled back in, and Dan now is losing time then behind Jamie as well here, because Dan needs to try and stay within that 6 seconds I should say, never mind. I thought it was going to be worse than that. Then into the first chicane then Jamie then is just doing his best then in this final lap now as well to hold on to those tyres. Then Astrotron is back past Jake the Slayer then for P12, and those two carrying on their fight then, but we're going to go back to this one then because this is where it's going to get interesting indeed. Then Winnie then is on a charge then, but unfortunately for Winnie then that 6 seconds is going to come back to bite him here, but unfortunately he's not going to be able to keep hold of that podium place I don't think then for Winnie as it stands then, with 6 seconds to be added onto his race time at the end of the Grand Prix then. It's still closing in then on the McLaren of Ginner though. He's flying through there into the first Lesmo then. Jamie holds on to P3 then. It's getting closer and closer indeed then for Jamie then for a fantastic result here tonight then. We will see. But Smithy's now within 3 seconds of the Williams as well here, so it could get close. It could be Smithy on the podium, I think, here potentially. We'll have to wait and see then if it's going to unfold that way as well. Then Winnie then is all over the back of Ginner, then heading into Ascari then on the final for the final lap, the final time, and Ginner's got a penalty as well here. Then goodness me, then it's all going to be anarchy. Then if it's going to end this way, and we go into Parabolica now, then let's see what it's going to be. Ginner holds on to the lead into the final turn, I should say. Then on the final lap, there it's going to be side by side out of Parabolica to the line here for the Aston Martin and the McLaren. Here comes Winnie then, but Ginner then covers him off. Ginner wins the Italian Grand Prix. Fantastic stuff indeed then from the McLaren of Ginner. Dan does get P2 in the end. My goodness me, only 1.2 seconds in it at the end as well there. Smithy onto the podium then in P3, then Winnie P4, Jamie then in P5, the Mr. Elite P6, San in P7, Dynamo Dan will cross the line in P8, then Serious Mushroom P9 there. Fantastic stuff indeed. What a race win then indeed as Lucas left the session then, but I think he hasn't finished the race unfortunately for Luke then, so unfortunately he needs to make sure he gets himself to the checkered flag before unfortunately otherwise he won't be classified. Ginger Rage and Jake the Slayer and Astra John are having a battle as well there. My goodness me, as ALR Esports doesn't know what he's doing there as well then. Fantastic stuff indeed. Hungry Stars then P10 in the end there as well, then Astrotron P11, then Ginger Rage P12, Jake the Slayer in P13. Luke will get himself, I think, P14 just about there, but he might be under threat as well then for losing that extra point then, because Goddard's is coming around the final corner then, and let's see what Goddard's can do on his first ALR appearance. Then he gets himself a point then as well. Then unfortunately for Real Ashton, it was so close then, but it just missed out then by 1 point as well. Then Vintage P19, Liam in P20 there, Umabro across the line in P17 to Kanko then in P18 here as well. Then my God, what a fantastic Italian Grand Prix. It didn't go the way for some then, of course, though, but They still hold it down, I should say, then to the end of the Grand Prix. I can't hold it down in the comments box, to be fair. So there we are. Wow, what a Grand Prix that was indeed as well here. Great race from Rocket Lee as well. Then tyres were so dead. So Jamie's done a fantastic stint, I should say that as well. Then on that on those intermediate compound tyres. Wow, very good racing from Bronze as well. Wish the game would just say it was dry or wet, says Dynamo Dan. Ginner then does Ginner and Winnie then get driver of the day then, but that will be decided in the Discord, of course. Then well done Ginner, Dan and Smithy. Then well done Ginner from Rocket Lee as well. Astra, those last 4 laps were so much fun, says Jake the Slayer as well. Then well done indeed. Some great battles there as well. Then for Astrodron and Jake the Slayer as well. Then some good points as well on the board for both here in Italy. And there you are then. There is the podium celebrations then with Ginner then in P1 then for the McLaren from pole position to the checkered flag as well. Then in the end, fantastic result. Then Dan P2, Smithy in P3, then Winnie P4, Jamie in P5, Mr. Elite P6, San in P7, Dynamo Dan P8, then Sirius Mushroom P9, Hungry Styles in P10, Astro John then P11, Ginger Age P12, Jake the Slayer P13, Luke in P14, and Goddard's rounds off the points paying positions for the Italian Grand Prix. Then Real Ashton in P16, Yumabro in P17, then Ducanco P18, Vintage in P19, Liam in P20, and hats off to the 5 outside the top 10. Then once everyone stops sniffing in the party chat, then and hats up to the top 5 to those 5, so bottom 5 then for carrying on in this race as well. Then they have done a fantastic job then here tonight. Then brilliant stuff indeed. Fantastic. We'll get on with some interviews, shall we then? And then we can get Smithy back in then. Fantastic stuff. Smithy, how was your race then, man? You got yourself
Oh, it was good.
after that?
That's not my hay fever, mate. I think I might be down there. But yeah, no, it was a great race. I wasn't expecting podium at all. We are very, very happy to be finishing third in that race. That was a brilliant race. And yeah, I think that's probably my best performance from the range so far.
And did you know what? Well, firstly, did you know it was going to be a wet race? Because we had differing reports in the comment section during qualifying. It did look a bit more gloomy as we went through the qualifying session, and then it started raining on the formation lap for me. I'm not sure it was the same for you guys on the grid.
Yeah, for me, I could clock the rain literally as soon as I pulled up on my grid spot. So yeah, you never know with F1, do you? Especially this one, whether there's going to be rain or not. The forecast isn't particularly accurate on the game. So yeah, that was always like a bit of a hit and miss. So I ended up taking Mushroom's advice and sticking on the dry setups and just knocking my wing up a couple, and that did actually work out quite well for me in the end. So I've got to thank Mushroom on that one.
Brilliant stuff indeed, and it worked out in the end for another podium. Then, of course, your teammate then has lost the championship lead, but Kick Sauber then looking strong then for with your result as well then for the constructors title still. And yeah, what's your thoughts then going into the Mystery Grand Prix next week?
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty. Oh, nice. Yeah, looking forward to it. I think Mystery is going to chuck up some good results, some unpredictable results as well. So yeah, purely focused on the constructors for me now, and I ain't got a chance in getting towards that top 3. So yeah, for me, it's all about the constructors at the moment.
Brilliant stuff indeed. And Sirius Mushroom has acknowledged in the comment section that he did give you the setup, so it's all going well. All the credit goes to him basically. So yeah.
Yeah, no, fair play.
Good stuff indeed. And well, congratulations then to Smithy then P3 tonight then here in Monza for Kick Sauber. We'll jump over to Dan. Then Dan in P2 tonight then, and well, you had firstly quite a bit of a battle then with Ginner then for the first stint then, and then towards the end of that race, again, it looked like you might be able to reel him in for potentially the race win as well. What were your thoughts throughout that Grand Prix?
Yeah, sorry, it's me sniffing away after 27 laps driving in the rain. I've got the flu, so yeah, Ginner had too much pace for me. I managed to get ahead of him at the start on the dries, and then we boxed for the inters, and then it became quite apparent quite quickly that he was quicker than me. So I sort of really thought long game here, given where Luke was. I really didn't even battle it. I just wanted to take some good points, so I just let Ginner go, try to stay with him, but couldn't. And then essentially ended up battling Winnie and Jamie towards the end. I was aware they had some penalties, so I was just trying to keep it clean, and thankfully I went from P4 to P2. So yeah, assuming no penalties are removed for any particular reason, then yeah, it's a good night's work.
Yeah, and of course he was only 1.2 seconds behind the the race leader, the race winner, the checkered flag. Then it looked like it was getting very close indeed. Then between the two of you, and of course with Jamie and Winnie in the penalty situation. Then did you think potentially you might have the race win towards the end there, or did you know that Gino was going to be able to hold on to it?
To be honest, I wasn't even thinking that far ahead. I was looking at Jamie because he stayed out. He didn't go for a second pit stop, so he was trying to nurse those tyres all the way to the end. So I was watching his gap close down lap by lap, and I was also looking at Smithy behind me. So I wasn't. I don't like driving in the rain. I was not particularly happy tonight. So thinking about first place, in my mind, Gino had checked out and he'd gone. So I was surprised to see it was only 1.21 across the line.
Well, in the end, you claimed the championship lead in the driver's standings then after the race result, of course, tonight then. So what's your thoughts now into the last 4 races? Of course, 2 of them in the next 2 weeks being the Mystery Grand Prix as well, which might add a bit more spice to the championship fight, let's just say that. But what's your thoughts going into the final 4 races?
Yeah, obviously the double header with the mystery tracks makes it a bit harder to prepare. So this will be a real test for us. I don't know what happened to Luke tonight, but I don't know whether he was just struggling or just got caught up in incidents. I'm really not sure, but he's taken a bit of a swing over the last couple of races. So it's just about trying to maintain it and sort of see where we are come the end.
Good stuff indeed then. Well, congratulations then for P2 tonight then for Dan then in the Alpine. He takes the championship lead as well then away from Luke. Unfortunately for Jenna, he's not joined us in the comms box, but congratulations as well then to Jenna then for the race win in the McLaren then here in Monza. Then fantastic McLaren win in Monza once again. Good stuff. And we'll crack on then to the Mystery Grand Prix in a week's time. Then, of course, gold will be taking us through. Then we have a choice then from the wheel of Azerbaijan, Singapore, or US of A, and that will be the same then for silver on Monday next week, and for bronze in a week's time. Then, so stay tuned to ALR. There's plenty more action coming up then, and we'll see you soon.